everyone. Welcome back. We are on the letter R in our Food for Thought series with Dr. MJ. Who did we select for the letter R?
Cedric Robinson.
Cedric Robinson. Okay. Black Marxism. Let's get into it. This is a beautiful cover, by the way.
It is a beautiful cover. In this ambitious work, first published in 1983, Cedric Robinson demonstrates that efforts to understand Black people's history of resistance solely through the prism of Marxist theory are incomplete and inaccurate. Marxist analyses tend to presuppose European models of history and experience that downplay the significance of Black people and Black communities as agents of change and resistance. Black radicalism, Robinson argues, must be linked to the traditions of Africa and the unique experiences of Black people on Western continents, and any analyses of African American history needs to acknowledge this. So therefore, Robinson traces the emergence of Marxist ideology in Europe, the resistance of Black people in historically oppressive environments, and the influence of both of these traditions on such important 20th century Black radical thinkers as W.B. Du Bois, C.L.R. James, and Richard Wright. So I guess the interplay between Black resistance movements and Marxist thought in different eras of Black resistance. I have not read this, I confess, but it's on my on my list.
Now it's on our reading list. Okay, let's see the quote that you pulled from it.
So I pulled it at very, very random, and then I think it's very interesting because it is in conversation with some of the other stuff that we've been reading. So the random section I pulled is the British West Indies. The elimination of obeah had become an official preoccupation, and for good reason. Obeah men and women were frequently the source of ideology for the slave rebellions. Obeah functioned largely in the numerous rebellions of the slaves. This was particularly the case with the obeah men from the Gold Coast. In the plotting of these rebellions, the obeah man was essential in administering oaths of secrecy and in cases distributing fetishes which were supposed to immunize the insurgents from the arms of the whites. As it happened, obeah proved to be more resilient than its opponents. Indeed, it was never extinguished. It continued its mutational adaptation and development in Jamaica and elsewhere over the centuries, successfully manifesting itself in the societies of Nihilism in the 18th and 19th centuries, the Pocomania movement in the late 19th, and the Rastafarians of the present. So that's the passage.
Okay.
And I guess, let's say my understanding, and it's limited, and I'm probably misrepresenting the word, but obeah, I guess, is spiritual practices that were traditional to here. He's talking about the Gold Coast, which is now known as Ghana. But that all of these practices have been constructed by European colonizers as witchcraft and then banned, right? So people's spiritual practices as being seen and as in fact being threatening to colonialism. So that's, we're going to go back to Ben Okri, we're going to go back to Aikwe Arma around traditions that have been forgotten or erased.
Yeah.
Precisely because their understanding of what the purpose of life, the meaning of life, who we're accountable to, the practice of life, like, are radically opposed to kind of death cults that we have in colonial culture. So that was a great passage and made me think of when I last went to Rwanda a few months ago, 6 months ago maybe. I went to this cultural center that I had never been to, or that I'd been to before. And there's a section in that place where they have like the vessels that were used in traditional spiritual practices, right? So now if you go to Rwanda, most people are Christian or Muslim. Mm-hmm. That's about it. Yeah. But there were, different deities before that, right? Mm-hmm. That were basically extinguished by colonialism, but she's sharing like these vessels, and then one of them was like this heart-shaped vessel, and I was like, what is this? And she said, the spiritual being worshipped here is somebody called, again, I might butcher the name, Nyabingi, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, ooh. She's like, yeah, this is a woman. It was because it was also a female deity, a woman deity, right? And I was like, oh, tell me more. And that, weirdly enough, like I looked up the name because I got very fascinated by who's this person. And you look it up yourself. So if you look up the word Nyabingi or Nyabinshi, you'll see, I mean, that's not where I wanted to go with this, but she was a whole bunch of anti-colonial queens in Rwanda and Uganda, Angola, invoked her spirit when they fought against colonizers. Like, these are all women, right? Wow. Yeah. So, so I asked my mom, like, what is Nyabingi? Mom was very Christian. She's like, you mean that witch? She's like, that witch? I'm like, got it. I should be more deeply into this. So, and then like her name got taken up in Jamaica too, like as part of the Rastafari movement. So there's all kinds of spiritual resistance, traditions of resistance in Black communities that are based in spirituality that we don't know nearly enough about. And I do not expect to find that in Black Marxism, but that's the passage I picked up.
And you saw this in a cultural center, like at
this amazing cultural center on the way to what's that place on the way to Gisenyi.
Wow.
You should go if the next time we go to Rwanda. Like, I was like, whoa, this is stuff I have definitely not been taught. So,
okay.
And you should look up Nyabingi, and you should read Cedric Robinson.
How do we spell Nyabingi?
Black Marxism.
How do we spell Nyabingi?
Nyabingi, Nyabinghi, or yeah, that's pretty much it.
I thought you were going to give us an or. So that is our letter R, and we will be back. Thank you so much.